All right, folks, on tap next, government-installed GM chairman Ed Whitaker making some strong statements about the company's future. Is he proof that the government is playing too much with private business? We're going to ask 2010 U.S. Senate candidate Rand Paul when Happy Hour continues here on Fox Business, the only business network where you can see the judge in true HD.
Jack, baby, meet me out back. We're gonna boogie. Oh, get down, turn around.
Government-appointed GM chairman Ed Whitaker taking a firm hand in the company's future. Whitaker telling the Wall Street Journal the company is focused on paying out the debt portion of the bailout, and that CEO Fritz Henderson's projection of an IPO for the company in 2010 may be too optimistic. Now Whitaker is leading a board at GM, which was largely replaced, of course, by the Republican-Democrat regime. Is the government-placed board's control of the company strangling GM's chances of recovery? Let's ask 2010 Senate candidate Rand Paul, who joins us now from Kentucky. Welcome back to the show, Dr. Paul.
Good to be with you, Cody and Rebecca. I'd rather be up there with you in the bar, though. It's more fun up there.
Yeah, well, we had a blast last time you were here. Next time you're in the city, please let us know, and we'll have you right back on the stool with us. So there's the question. Is the government, as usual, meddling too much, or since we bailed out GM, should they be in there?
This is a tough one, Cody. Let's see, the government that buys $100 wrenches and $400 hammers, would they be good at running the car industry? I don't think they have a very good track record at running government programs, so I don't see why in the world we'd want them to run the car industry.
So, Dr. Paul, though, then how do we look out for our interests as taxpayers? We've got a lot on the line in General Motors, in AIG, and these banks that took bailout money. We want our money back. We don't want them, taking private corporate jets to Hawaii for some conference and getting paid, millions of dollars in bonuses. So how do we balance that with too much government intervention?
Yeah, I think it's a mistake for government to be appointing executives and running entire industries. So I was against the bank bailout from the beginning. But had I been there at the time, I would have forced them to amend the rule or the bank bailout. And I would say, look, if you want to take the bank bailout, you have to renegotiate your contracts and give up your bonuses. In bankruptcy, you don't get bonuses. In bankruptcy, you don't give dividends to stockholders. Yep. So I would have written into the rule saying, if you want to take the money, you give up this. But I don't like the idea of the government picking who runs the industries. I mean, look at the government's track record. Look at FEMA. Do you want the head of FEMA? Yeah. I always use that as an example. Do you want the head of FEMA to run our health care? That's why we don't want them running health care. They can't do anything right.
So, Rand, Dr. Paul, I mean, stepping back and, you're running for Senate here, 2010, what is the most important thing you're going to attack? I mean, I'm not necessarily a libertarian, but as a free-thinking individual, I'm awfully intimidated and scared by the uphill fight that we have when, as we just noted, GM, AIG, you name it, everybody's on welfare.
I think there are two things you have to do to reform government. You need to limit their terms, and you need to have a balanced budget rule or amendment. In Kentucky, we have to balance the budget by the end of the day, always, by statute. We need that in Washington because they don't obey the rules. We had the Constitution at one time, but they quit obeying it in 1937. Since 1937, I don't think we've obeyed the Constitution at all. So we have to obey something, either the Constitution or we have to have a balanced budget amendment. We have to have some rules that restrain politicians because they're not trustworthy.
So, Dr. Paul, then you don't buy these arguments that the too big to fail, that was the premise, that the government got involved in all of this and sold it to some Americans, that we were on the verge of financial catastrophe. We have to do these bailouts. We have to stimulate the economy. You don't buy any of that at all.
I'm afraid I've been stealing Peter Schiff's line. I think they're too big to bail out, and they should have gone through bankruptcy. We have organized bankruptcy in this country. In my small town in Bowling Green, Kentucky, Fruit of the Loom went bankrupt, but do you know who bought them? Warren Buffett bought them out of bankruptcy. AIG is probably, to a large extent, a great company if they write off all of their securities, the derivatives, the credit default swaps.
Everything?
Well, no, but 70% of their business was probably as an insurance company. I think I still have my liability insurance through a local broker through AIG. So AIG would have been bought in bankruptcy by a Warren Buffett or another investor once they wrote off all their bad debt, and they would have bounced back within a few months. But we have bankruptcy in our country, but you don't reward people who go bankrupt. They don't get bonuses, and they don't get dividends for their stockholders. Those people have to all lose their money, but the company would survive and be bought by somebody else.
Amen.
Dr. Paul, thank you very much. I have to say,
Thanks
though,
for having me.
Bankruptcy still, as a shareholder, person who invested in that company, you know, you're just like, the company's like, yeah, see you later. We're washing away our debts as well. It's still not fair to a lot of people.
It is fair because they took a risk with their own assets, whether it was their savings, their retirement, their 401k, or their actual investments. They were risking their money in that stock. I wasn't.
I know, but I think the whole process of bankruptcy, you let a company off the hook too easily. On tap next. Cody's speechless.
I'm just trying to go to break.
On tap.
Boy.
Cody's got his shot clock, and I have a very special guest who is helping our heroes find jobs. We're going to talk about that. See you in the Diamond District in a second, folks.
Well, it was 5 years later on a southbound plane.